Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back to Diary of an Olympic Triathlete. We're now in week, I don't know what to call this week. I think let's see, the last video I made was week 13, but it's been almost 3 weeks since then. So I guess now we're in week 16. Um, Sorry about that. I've been quite busy over the last few weeks, and also I just haven't been sure when to make a video. So then I've kind of just not made one, and then realized, oh, well, it's almost next week. So then I've been like, all right, let me wait until next week, and that's happened a couple times. And then I was traveling. Don't worry, I will explain everything that has happened over the last couple of weeks. I'll give you all the full updates. I do apologize for that. Anyway, so when we left things off, there have been quite a few changes since we left things off. Some new PBs, a lot of progress, and a real big race coming up in technically a day, because technically it's Thursday and the race is on Friday, but really 2 days because it is midnight right now. Let's see if I can. I don't know if this is. There you go. It is 12:04. I'm really bad at like showing my watch. I don't know how to. Also, the camera angle's weird. Anyway, uh, so it's really Wednesday. I just don't mentally it's Wednesday until I go to sleep. It's Wednesday. But anyway, so yeah, in 2 days I have a pretty big race coming up. But we'll talk about that in a sec. First, let us pray. No, no. First, let me talk about what has happened over the last couple weeks because quite a few things have changed. There have been some new races added to the calendar that were then completed. So, the last video I made, I had to check the date. It was done on June 21st, which means you guys don't know about either of the last two 5Ks I've done. So, let's talk about the first one. I did a trail 5K on June 22nd. That was the one I was preparing for. And that I knew I was just going for the experience. I was doing it basically as a tempo run. I wasn't really expecting any good time to come out of it because it was, first off, a trail run, the first trail run I've done, and a very, very hilly course. It was not just hilly, but it was a hilly on the back half. So it was downhill going in the first half, and then it was back coming back up because it was an out and back 5K and out and back course. So sorry, I had dinner recently, so that's not a good idea to have dinner before bed. But I did kind of do it, or close to when you go to bed, but I did it. I apologize. Anyway, so about the race. Obviously, with a 5K, you're supposed to negative split it. With that race, that was obviously impossible to do. And I was hoping, though, that I would bank a good amount of time in the first mile to then in the second mile begin to kind of start recovering that and finish with a good, or not a good time, but a reasonable time. I'd done a hilly 5K only a couple weeks before, and I got like a 25, I got a 25:32 to be exact. I was going to say but I remember the exact time. We got this here. I was like, okay, I did that one in a 25:32, and it was hilly in the front half and then downhill in the back half. And so I was like, okay, if I got that time, maybe this one I could do 26, 26:30, I don't know, something like that. Like I knew this was going to be slower because having the hills at the end of the course when I'm already tired was going to make things very difficult. But I didn't, I don't know. It was really quite hard, and I also banked zero time in the front half of the 5K because the downhill was really not as helpful as I thought it was going to be because it was a very gradual downhill. It was kind of like a rolling hill situation. It wasn't like very steep. There weren't many steep uphills or downhills. So it was the kind where downhill you weren't really getting much momentum, but then uphill, when you're going uphill, you notice every little bit of elevation, and uphill it was pretty painful. So I think downhill, let's see, the first mile I think was like I could check the watch, but I think it was about an 8:10 if I remember correctly. Mile two was like I want to say like an 8:45, and then mile three was like a nine something. That those are like very approximate splits, but basically each mile I got slower. And although I was splitting it well given the circumstances because on the first half of the race I was sitting in a reasonably good position, and then coming in the back half I was passing people the whole way up. So I feel pretty proud of myself for that. But yeah, it was really really difficult. It was also hot, very hot conditions. We're going through a heat wave during that week, so pretty unpleasant in general. But yeah, so I was coming up the hill, and I remember there was one final part before we got to like a final flat for the final like half K basically. Um, and so I was coming up that final hill, and I don't know why, but like it was legitimately so hard to just keep running. So I stopped to speed walk for a very small section of it, and that allowed me to recoup energy. And that I legitimately like just before the race, I'd heard some advice from a video that was saying that sometimes on hills, it is actually a good idea to walk because walking can be faster than running. Because running, you're basically bouncing, right? You're basically like jumping. And on a hill, that's using a lot of effort because gravity's working against you. Um, and you're putting a lot of energy just into the air to go up like this when you need to be going forward like this. So the principle was you can walk a little bit, get your heart rate down, and then you're also saving a bit of energy while going probably just as fast or even a bit faster. And then, once you get to the top, you get back into it, blah, blah. And I'm not generally a very good hill runner. I've come to discover, like there's a lot of hills in my area, and I thought, oh, well, I practice with hills. I run with hills all the time. They're unavoidable, so I should be good on the hills. I was not good on the hills. It was really not good. So I was struggling. Like I need to work a bit on my hills. I do hill repeats now. Um, or not hill repeats. I do hill sprints every week. It's like kind of a strength training, and that's supposed to help with my technique as well. Hopefully, at some point, we'll see the dividends of that. But yeah, I'm still working exactly on how to do it. Like I've heard, use your arms, small steps, but those trying that would tire me out more. It almost felt like so I have to find a balance within what is the proper technique to run hills to be as efficient as possible. But yeah, so that was that race. I ended up with like a 27:12, if I remember correctly, which is not a very good time for me. But my dad and my brother were also running with me, and they also didn't get very good times for how fit they are. And they both finished ahead of me, but and I actually thought I was going to catch them on the downhill section. I was like, oh, like they started a bit ahead of me, but I was like, oh, I've got long legs. I'll get to them. I never got to them. And so they finished a couple of minutes ahead of me. And but yeah, we were all happy. It was a pretty small 5K, so actually some of my dad, my brother, and my grandma who was walking it, they all placed within their age groups because they're less competitive age groups. My age group, obviously, I'm always in like the 20 to 25 or 20 to 30 or whatever, or like the 18 to 25. So that my group is always insane. Like that's always like the guy who won the 5K is always usually in my age group. So that's kind of the situation we were dealing with there. But that actually does change because so the week after, I did another 5K because I was tired of doing the hill 5Ks because I done two so far. Two. I don't know why I did three. Two. I done two 5Ks and I did it again. Two like this, not three. Two. Uh, so I done two 5Ks and they were both hill ones. And so I was like, all right, I need one that is flat because I wanted to go for a PB. Because I was like, I have this 25 or this 24, sub 24 5K goal that like I really just have that in my mind. Like I want to try and go for this. So we're going to try to show up and see what we can do on a nice flat course. So we looked for a flat course. We found one that was in this town that was nearby for their like community day that they were having. And we're like, all right, awesome. Let's go there. This promises to be a flat course. And we'll see what happens. It was actually like it didn't say anything about it being flat, but we knew just based on the location of where it was that it was going to be a flat course because like the area in general didn't really have hills on it. So we're like, all right, it's a nice flat course, and we're just going to see what happens. And I thought that being on a flat course was going to make things so much easier because I'd been running on all these hills, both in my actual races, but then also my training. Just as I mentioned, I live in a hilly area, so I'm all the time running on hills. And I thought, all right, nice flat course, this should be easy. My PB for 5Ks at 24:14. I was looking for sub 24, and I was like, this flat course gives me a good chance. I'm very fit, and also I'm getting close to a point where I'll need to take a pause, which I'll mention that in a second. But I had kind of a pressure on top of me that if I want to get a sub 24, now is a very good time to do it because I won't be able to for the coming weeks. So I showed up to that race. It was good conditions. It was pretty cool. It was in the morning. I think it was like 8:30 the start, and we headed out. I was going like I started off really fast because the group always, when you're with a group of people, you always just kind of shoot out from the beginning. But then I slowed down. It turns out I slowed down a little too much. Checking my watch for like a good half of the first mile, I was running more like 8:30 pace. I couldn't tell because my watch was saying I was going 8-minute pace because that was the average because I'd shot out from the start line. But yeah, it turns out I was going a bit too slow. I was at like 8:10 coming out of the first mile, and that already I was looking for a 10 for a 24-minute 5K. The average that you need to have for that is a 7:45 mile, more or less, which I could permit a slight deviance because that is an average. The last zero point 0.1 mile, you can sprint that, which means you could probably shave about 10, 20 seconds off the average, which means you can then permit yourself to have 10, 20 seconds in another mile in the race. And also, my plan was negative split it, as in start with about an 8-minute mile, a little bit slower, and then shave it to a 7:45, and then go a bit under 7:45 in the last mile, and then full out sprint once I saw the finish line. And again, it was an out and back 5K, and it looked like there was a nice straight finish where you could see the finish line. And for me, just the mental part of being able to see the finish line and like seeing the goal right there, and then going for it, it makes it so much easier. That's why for me, like running on a track is good because it's flat, but it's also hard because literally until you're in the final 100, you don't see the finish line in front of you, and it's really hard to. I don't know. It's hard to just kick that extra gear in because you still don't see when you're going to be finished. And like you're already in pain, and pushing that pain down and being like, all right, we don't know when we're finishing, but we just got to increase the pain. That's a really hard thing for me to do. It's a lot easier though if I see that finish line there, being like, all right, that's when the pain ends. The faster we go, the sooner we get there. That's kind of the mentality I have. And so I thought, okay, this is going to be good for me. Turns out, so this was a very small 5K as well. I think it was the first year they were doing it. So we go out. I was already in pain pretty much once I hit like the 1 mile mark, and that was going slower than I needed to be going as well. So already I knew like I need to speed up. I'm already in pain. This is not like already by mile one. I'm like the 24-minute 5K not happening. Probably not a PB either. I do have the caveat that my PB was set on a treadmill, and my road PB was a lot slower because my road PB was at 25:32. Yeah, it was 25. No, I think it was even a bit slower. No, yeah, it was 25:32. I think that I'd set in the hill 5K like a few weeks back. So I was like, all right, let me try and beat that PB at the very least. Get a new road PB. So at least like sub 25. I hadn't even gotten sub 25 on the road. So I was like, all right, let me just do that. Be my PB from the hill race, that not the hill race on the trails. That was the I. It's confusing because I've done two hill races. The hill race on the trails was a bad time. The hill race that was downhill in the second half of the race, that's where I set my road PB. Surprisingly enough. Um, but so I was like, all right, I'll try that. I get to the turnaround point. I turn around. I'm starting to come back. I was starting to speed up. Like every little bit, I had to like kind of give myself a little kick to just be like, all right, you got to kick it into another gear because otherwise, like I was checking my watch, my pace was still not there really, and I was like, I really need to just keep pushing the pace, keep pushing the pace. I think that second mile I did like it was like 7:59 or something. So I get to the water table again. Like there was a water table kind of at like the 0.75 1 mile mark. So I get there, I get back, I pass by there, everything's going fine. Turns out, so this course pretty much didn't have crowds on it because it was so small. Like the only crowd was the crowd for the water table. And the indications also were non-existent. There were no signs. There was nothing taped off because it was such like a small event. All that there was a police car that was leading the lead runner. But obviously there were gaps. I came to find out my little brother was running quite a bit ahead of me, and there was such a gap that he did not see neither the people in front or behind him. Like he had such a large stretch of road around him that there was nobody there. So he had no indication of where he was supposed to go. And of course, there was also no indication objectively from the race organizers. So I just followed the runners in front of me, which I have heard is advice that like that's not something you should do in races. Like don't just follow the people in front of you. They might not know what they're doing, which they didn't because it turns out we went the wrong way. And the wrong way that we went had a lot more turns. It turns out it was actually the exact right distance, though. It was still 3.11 miles or 5K. But I ended up taking a lot of turns, so I remember getting on a straightaway, thinking that was the final straightaway, thinking the finish line's down there. So I started kicking it, And then it turns out there was another turn we had to do because basically the alternative route that we were taking on accident was much more kind of doing this, like curving around different blocks. So mentally, that was hard. You can actually see in my watch how my mental game was kind of fading because there'd be points where I'd speed up and then slow down, speed up and slow down. That would kind of go with my confidence. Where like that's also the point where when I was speeding up, I was feeling good, thinking, all right, the finish is getting close, the finish is getting close. The thing is, humans, we're kind of stupid creatures, and we can only work with what we see. Really, like especially in a race environment, you can only work with what you see, and your watch might say zero point 0.5 miles remaining, but you don't mentalize that very well. But if you can see a zero point 0.5 open stretch in front of you, it feels much closer than if you're seeing that number on your watch, but you don't really know how close you are. Because then you're like, I don't know how long of an effort that's going to be. I don't know what that's going to feel like. I just know I'm in pain right now, and now I got zero point 0.5 of this left. What does that mean? So I was definitely in pain for a good part of the race, but just motivating myself, thinking that it's a little bit of pain right now for a lot of glory later, which is always what I think about. Like any race after I finish, any of the mistakes I made, those are things that I will then have to chew on for days. And that's with a 5K. And the thing is, I'm trying to get into longer and longer races in the future. And like the longer the race gets, the harder it gets to redo the race. Like if you do like a 10K, okay, a 10K you could probably do every weekend. A half marathon, though, which I'm looking at doing in December, a half marathon you could only do like once every 2 weeks maybe, but that's very ambitious. Like it depends how well you're trained, and most likely you're doing a half marathon every 2 months, maybe every 3 months. Like those are in a marathon, definitely you're doing like once every 3 months. So if you have a certain failure in what you were doing there, that's something you have to chew on for a really long time. Like it's only, a marathon is 4 hours 5 hours of running, but then it is months of, if you missed your PB by 10 seconds because you just didn't think you had it in you in mile 10 and you started to back off your pace. Um, that's something that you're really sitting on for a long time. So like that, I mean, that for me goes in like, my PB, my 24:14. There was a part of that race where in mile 3, I was starting to speed up, and then I just felt like a breaking point. So I slowed down just slightly. I slowed back down to 8 minute pace for just a little bit. And my thought is just, if I'd kept speeding up instead of slowing down there, that could have been the difference. And I could already have a sub 24 5K if I just done that on that day. But I just had that little moment of weakness. That was a moment in February. Now I'm in July and I'm still thinking about, it's possible. It's hard. You're not supposed to beat yourself up over these things. And I don't beat myself up that much, to be honest, but it just is something you think about. Um, anyway, so I got to the end of the race. I really didn't have much of a sprint finish in me. Like in a lot of races I do, so especially in the mile. But in the 5K, I just didn't. My legs were really hurting. I've been doing more long runs, and I thought that would help. But I think I increased my mileage a bit too much, so my legs were almost a bit dead on race day. And yeah, it was hard. So yeah, definitely pain, hard finish, not really sprinting. I never got to a full sprint. I got to just a slightly faster kind of lope. And yeah, so I finished with a 24:38, which is now my current road PB. And I kind of consider it my 5K PB because, again, the treadmill 5K, you got to have an asterisk next to it. So that's my road PB, and we are close, but it indicates that it's just my cardio just wasn't there. I mean, I need to get 30 seconds from somewhere, and I need that pace to just feel a little bit easier. And so that's going to come from do some cardio, do some tempo runs, do some work at 5K speed. I really haven't done much of that. Like all my speed work has been related to the mile, which I'll get to that in a second. And then, I've done some tempo runs as well, but not very many. And then, so just that, more easy mileage, more cross training, just working on that aerobic base, and eventually we'll get there. But we have to give it time. Anyway, so talking about, first off, why did I have so much emphasis on this 5K? Why was I like, I need to get it? Because I'm going to be going on another trip. I say another because I was on a trip last week for the 4th. I was down south, so that's why I didn't make a video. I was still training. I was preparing for the big mile race I have in 2 days. But basically, I had a lot of pressure on that 5K and on the mile race that's coming up in 2 days, because I will then be on a trip to Alaska for about 2 weeks. During that time, I will not be able to train really because there will be a lot of moving around, a lot of. I mean, I'll be keeping in shape by like hiking and stuff, but I won't be able to really properly run, and especially not do any hard sessions while I'm there. And also, mentally, I do think it's important to take a break from these kinds of things. Running is fun, but you always have to have a little time when you don't do it. Um, at least training for hard things. Obviously, easy runs are a nice mental escape, but it is like the way I see running is I don't know how to say it. Like it can be an escape at times, but a lot of times for me, it's kind of like this project that I'm doing, and it makes me feel good. It gives me like a sense of purpose. But I think at different times in my life, it'll obviously have a different role depending on what I need it to do. But yeah, in these last months, it's been more like a project than an escape, which is how many people describe it. Um, so I don't know, like in that sense, I do need a little break from my projects, but it is a project I very much enjoy doing. So obviously, um, and some runs can be escapes. I will say, like especially the nice, slow, easy runs. But and I will say there are also like even some workouts. I had like a workout I did a couple weeks ago. I think it was last week actually. That I was just dealing with a problem. I went down to the track and I just felt like that problem went away. Like at least I did not think about it throughout the entire workout, mainly because I was in pain. But I didn't think about it. And then once I finished, I was like, all right, back to the real world. Let's work on this. So it does kind of give me that moment of getting to enjoy that time. I was with my brother. I was with my dad. I was with a coach. Having a good time there, training together, enjoying this kind of common thing. And I've had weird days where I've been like, all right, to make this day less weird, I'm going to go for a run because that's a very normal thing. Um, and I think I'll be going to Spain in a few months, and so having running is just going to be a nice stabilizer. I think to kind of stabilize everything. But yeah, but no, it is nice to have a break as well. I do plan on running a little bit when I'm in Alaska. I have one big run planned while I'm there, but everything else is going to be let's take a break from physical activity. Take like not like an off season. I know a lot of runners do like to take off seasons at some part of the year, and I think I will at some points, but more just like a mini vacation, recharge the batteries, come back. But the problem is, yeah, 2 weeks of no running, because actually that trip will also run up to another trip immediately after. So there will be definitely an extended period of no physical activity or no running, and that does decrease the fitness quite drastically. I noticed that with my injury, I was out for about a month and change, and when I came back, my easy runs were higher heart rates for less distance at a slower pace than they were before. And it was a pretty significant difference. So, obviously, with 2 weeks away, I'm just going to lose that little bit of edge, especially, the speed section, which means that going for those PBs is going to require, a little bit of coming back. Let's build it up with some tempo, some easy runs, give it a second, do a bit more cross training, and then we'll get back into the speed work and whatnot. But the thing is, I'll be coming back at the end of July. At that point, it's already July 11th. I'll be coming back, July in late 20s, early 30s, and that pretty much just leaves August. In August is a month, right? But it's a month, if I'm making any sense. It's not a long time, and so if I'm at this point that I'm at, I'm a 24-30 5K runner. I want to be a 24 5K runner. I'm going to lose fitness, and then in a month I have to recover fitness up to this point, plus gain enough to chop 30 seconds off my time. We are really asking a lot. It still is possible, and also 5Ks, I can run those in Spain. So obviously I'm not like too worried, but I am slightly worried that like I was seeing this 5K that I did as my major opportunity with good fitness to try to run a PB time. Because now I'm going on this trip, I'm going to come back. It's going to be difficult to get back in the shape to run a 24-minute 5K and, and get it before summer's over. But like it is possible, but it's going to be hard. And then once I get to Spain, I'm going to be in college. I'm going to be busy, and then I'll be training for the half marathon, which is going to mean not a whole lot of speed work and a lot of easy, slow miles to increase my mileage. And that's not optimal for running the best 5K. I mean, it obviously will help me in a certain way, but my focus is not going to be what's my best 5K time. Like that's not the time to go for a PB. So we'll see. But I don't imagine a 5K PB coming out of that that time there. Um, so that's why it's some pressure. I'm a little disappointed I didn't get there, but the door's still open. Door's still very much open. 2 weeks is not the end of the world, and I think if I really put effort, I find a nice flat course, good day, good conditions at the end of August, I think there's a real possibility. So we're going to keep that door very much open. The other door, though, however, that I think is going to get a bit more closed is going to be the one for the mile. So we have the big mile race coming up tomorrow, which I'm now tapering for. Um, which it is pretty crazy to be tapering for such like a short race. Like a mile is such a short thing, but I am tapering for this race. So I've started reducing volume. Today I did a short and long run. I've been doing long runs. I got up to 70 minutes last week, and then I came back down this week. And I don't know. I'm trying to run the 6 minute mile. That's been a goal I've established before in this series. So that's a definite goal. And everything's been going pretty much to plan up until this week. So up until this week, I've been doing everything well. Did all the training. I went down to North Carolina where I was training in the heat, which is similar to altitude. Training in the heat is said to have benefits. It increases your blood plasma level, or your blood plasma levels. Sorry. It increases your perspiration, your sweat rates. It's said to have quite a few benefits. It strengthens your left ventricle, which is said to supply more oxygen to the blood singular. I can't words. That's just the thing. Anyway, but no, it's said to have many benefits. In fact, in some ways, more benefits than altitude training. At least some argue. So I did quite a bit of heat training because it was just so ridiculously hot and humid down there, and I was down in North Carolina. I don't know if I mentioned that yet, but yeah, that's where I was. I was in North Carolina, so real nice and hot down there. Getting in the 90s with some good humidity. So I did a long run, which was miserable. I was sweating so much. And then I did a tempo workout that was on a treadmill, and then I did some hill repeats. I also swam a good amount because we were staying by a lake there, so I swam in the lake a couple times, and that was quite nice. So anyway, it was an enjoyable experience. There were some hard workouts in there, some easier workouts. The tempo I did was quite nice. I hadn't done a tempo in a long time because I've been using my 5Ks as kind of tempo runs, but the tempo I did there was a proper tempo at my lactate threshold. And I was doing like reps of over and under, and that went really well. I did like a 24-minute kind of workout with, alternating going above and below my lactate threshold by a little bit. And it was a really fun workout. I felt like I was going fast. I was sweating bullets, but I had a really good time doing it. And just, it was like a very nice feeling workout. So that was definitely enjoyable. And that's something I think I will continue, like especially when I'm getting back from my vacation. I will be kind of focusing on starting with tempo runs instead of doing as much speed work, and then I'll kind of start to reincorporate the speed work as is necessary. Um, but yeah, definitely was an enjoyable experience, and I would say I also liked it more than because I have done a tempo that was just a straight 20 minutes at lactate threshold. I didn't like that as much because it's just like a very, all right, let's go constant 20 minutes at a pretty hard pace. Like it's not too far off from the feeling of a 5K, and 5Ks are torture, as many of y'all know. So getting to alternate, having a small change, knowing, all right, here we're gonna have to push a little bit, all right, and then we're gonna let off, and then it was nice. Like it was still a hard workout throughout. Like you were always exerting effort, but having those changes just makes it a bit easier mentally, I think. Anyway, so the workouts have been going good. We're now tapering, and everything was going to plan until Monday. So Monday was the last hard workout before this race, and fortunately, so my dad knows a coach that has been helping us out. He kind of prescribed us some workouts, and well, I'll give you all the summary of what they were. So the workout that we did, let's see. When I last updated you guys, we done one workout that was a 12 by 400. Oh, that was a brutal one. Uh, we had to do that at 7 minute mile pace, so 145. And then, speed up throughout. And that was to build aerobic strength. That was a pretty hard workout just because of like the pure length, but we got through that okay. The workout the week after was an 8 by 400 at 135, so 620 pace, speeding up throughout, and then with a 130 rest. And that was a pretty hard workout, but I'd say it went well. Like we got through it, but definitely were was working hard. Okay, and then last week was at 130. It was another 8 by 400 going at 130 pace. So my target mile pace now. We went from from 620, which was a little bit below my mile pace, to now 6 minute pace properly hitting the 6 minute mile with a 2 minute rest. That workout was surprisingly easy. Not like easy, but like it, we're definitely working hard, but it went pretty quickly. The reps were hard, but we got through them. We had a good rest, and it was all good. And then the plan for this week was to do an 8 by 400 at that same pace, but this time with a 130 rest. And what I thought was, we've done the work all these past weeks of getting the pacing down, going at that speed, working the speed down, increasing aerobic endurance, and increasing aerobic strength. So in theory, we've done all the steps. This workout should be fine. It's 30 seconds less rest per rep, which is a pretty big difference. But I was like, you know what? We'll be okay. We were not okay. We were not okay at all. I mean, it didn't help that the day was quite hot and sunny, and there apparently was an air quality warning too, I'm told. That said, compared to North Carolina, it was not very hot, and we had just gotten back from North Carolina, but that's always a factor. We get to the track, do our warm up, we start to get into it. Rep one, I was like, dang, this is a pretty hard pace. I forgot. And then the coach was like, don't worry, it'll get easier for reps two and three. It did. Reps two and three, pretty comfortable. Not comfortable, but good. Getting around. Rep four was a killer. And then from there, it was pretty much just the death march the entire rest of the workout. It was really hard. After each rep, I was really, really breathing hard. The rest felt like they were nothing, like they were just going by so quickly. And really, the whole time, I was just trying to get some air back in my lungs. It's pretty clear to me that I was going anaerobic for a large portion of the reps, and I was pretty much getting into oxygen debt. I could figure out at one point we had to extend the rest back to 2 minutes because there was just no way we could physically repeat the rep. And then I tried for the final rep, the eighth one, to go with just a 130 rest, and I didn't make it. I got halfway around the track, and literally my body, I was just in pain the entire first 200. And I get to the 200 mark, my body just forced me to slow down. I slowed to a jog, and then I was just like, all right, we're done. And I went down, hands on my hands and knees, inside on the inside of the track, and I was disappointed, honestly. Like, my brother and my dad finished out the rep, and I kind of took my walk of shame back, and I was disappointed because the coach was also telling us this is a predictive workout. This is kind of, if you can do this workout, the average of it is what you can, in theory, run in the mile race. And what this predicts is I'm going to be able to run this pace for 3.5 laps and then get to the final, 200 and collapse. That's the prediction. Um, and I was like, damn, it just shows that my aerobic system is not there to run this pace yet. Um, However, I did think of something which it helped that I've started taking pretty meticulous notes of my workouts. And so I went back to the workout from 2 weeks ago and I checked it. And we were supposed to run 135 quarters. The difference is in this workout, we were doing 130. But then I checked and my average was 132 in that workout, which means the only difference, and in this workout, up until my collapse, I was averaging 130 pretty much on the dot, or like a little bit slower. And basically checking back on those notes, I was like, wow, I ran pretty quickly. Obviously, part of that average was skewed because my last laps I ran I kind of sprint finished them, but I didn't fully sprint finish them. So I was like, 132 is obviously a pretty good representation of an average that I can hold throughout a race. And some of those reps were even faster. They were like, 130, 129, 128, So I was like, I can withstand throughout the mile according to that workout, which was again in theory at 135 pace with a 130 rest. I can withstand this pace. In theory, if I've been willing to slow down at the end of this workout, I probably could have finished the rep and still had an okay average. So basically what this tells me is I can go 130, 130, well, I can go 132, 134, kind of in there per quarter. And then what I have, which has always been my strength, and it's been the reason why my mile times are so good compared to my. Because most people, if you can run a 6 minute mile, you should be able to run like a 20-minute 5K, is what a lot of race calculators say, which I could not. What does that indicate? That my speed is very good, and my aerobic system needs some work. And so I was like, okay, we're looking at this principle. Well, then what are we doing here? Because here's the thing: when I ran my previous times that have gotten me to this point, at no point did I average those paces throughout the race. That's to say, when I ran the 7 minute mile, which you guys saw that time trial, what happened during that? Well, I was averaging that during the first two laps. The third lap, I dropped way off. In the fourth lap, I gained 15 seconds on the time because I sprinted at the end. I just had a really good finishing kick. I actually think it was 20 seconds that I gained on the. Let's see, I was at 5:30. I ended up getting 6:55, so I ran a 1:25 when I had to run a 1:45. So yeah, I beat my split by 20 seconds. In my race, the race the week after that, I got a 6:40 on. A similar thing happened. I ran 1:40, 1:50, and 1:40. Um, so I was averaging a slower split than what I needed to have, and then I sprinted out the finish, and I think I had a 1:25 final lap that gave me that time. And then also similarly, the race after that, I don't know my exact splits, but what I do know is that my final lap was definitely my fastest. And I felt really bad too going into that final lap. And that 120, that 6:23 is what sets me up is what has set me up now to be like, I think I can go for six. Because if it had not been for every single one of those races, I wouldn't feel confident doing what I am now. And what I'm thinking is, okay, the recipe that's gotten me here every time has been a final sprint with confidence, being in just total pain, but knowing the finish line is right there. And like if you think about it, right, I need to run so if I ran a consistent 6 minute mile, I would run 1:30 for each quarter mile, which would be 45 seconds for every 200 meters. I mean, technically slightly less because technically a mile isn't 1,600 meters, it's 1,609, but whatever. Y'all understand. So about 45 per 200 meters. Now, my PB in the 200 is a 29.5. So I have the speed of my legs. And especially, if I'm tired in a race, okay, I can then run a 35, let's say. And especially this race that I'm going to be running in 2 days is a road race, which means it's not a track. This is a straight road. When I get to the final quarter mile, I will be able to see the finish line within those 400 meters of me. So I'm gonna see it there and be like, what if I get to that in whatever times on my watch? I got a 6 minute mile. And so I think that's mentally also the crowds because this is a massive race. Like in Pittsburgh, it's called the America's Mile this year. It's used to be called the Liberty Mile. Uh, in Pittsburgh, this race is a massive deal. There's going to be a ton of people there. They said it's the biggest race in the history of this race. Um, which I mean could be a technicality because technically it's the first year it has its current name, so they could be like, oh, it's the biggest edition of this race, and it's be like, yeah, it's the only one. But no, I think what they mean is it is the biggest race that they've had, and they've been having this race here for like 10 years, and it's always been a big affair. Like I remember being there in 2021, it was a huge thing, and so this year it's going to be even bigger. So just those crowds and that straightaway finish, like realistically, I could run that final 200 in 35 seconds. That shaves 10 seconds off of my time, which means I can afford in the first three quarters to be 10 seconds off of my split, which means instead of running a 1:30, run a 1:33. And that is the difference between this oxygen debt, me, crashing on the floor that happened in the workout on Monday versus 2 weeks ago running that same average in my workout. So that's just the thought process that is going through my head right now that, you know, if I can run nice, consistent splits at a slightly slower pace and then work my way up throughout the race and get that nice sprint finish, we got this, man. Like, this is a very real possibility, but I need to work with what's gotten me here, which is be okay with being slightly under pace and then get to the finish going at the pace or going over the pace, way over the pace, just like sprinting to the finish, passing all kinds of people and getting to the end. So that's what we're looking at right now. And I'm definitely nervous because if I don't get this here, it's going to be really hard for me to get a 6 minute mile this summer because I'm going I'm going on this trip, and then I'm coming back, and then I have another trip, and so it's going to be about August that I'd restart training, and that's 4 weeks, which is 4 weeks, but also it's 4 weeks. Like it's not very much time that I'm gonna have, and I'm really gonna have to work hard and do hard workouts. That like these workouts have been brutal, and I've been really lucky to have the people with me to do them. Because if it had been me alone, there's no way I would have even gotten halfway through most of the workouts. So having that support has been really massive. So I do want to thank my family and Coach Dave. If you're out there watching this, you probably aren't, but if you are, you've been a real one. I appreciate you. But yeah, so I've been putting in the work, but it's going to be hard to go back there and do those hard reps again. There's not going to be another big race like this. So obviously for me, just the romantic image of getting my 6 minute mile and my PB on this big stage with this massive cheering crowd, that's really that's huge for me. So that's part of it. But yeah, it really is like this is kind of my best opportunity because then I'm gonna come back. I only have a month until the end of summer, and then once summer ends, it's just gonna be really hard because in Spain, mile races don't exist. Because obviously there they don't use miles. So like there's gonna be no race. Like I would have to do it as a time trial, which obviously automatically makes it harder. They also don't really have too many tracks around where I'm gonna be, and like it would just be really hard to do a time trial. And then also again, I'm gonna have school, and then I'm gonna have my half marathon. So um, like this is really the best opportunity that I'm gonna have. So I'm gonna be very nervous on the start line of that race, but I just need to be prepared. Know that I have done the work. Know what my strategy is. Just be willing to at the beginning back off a little bit and then speed up throughout, and then feel the pain, feel the burn. Know that it's 6 minutes of burn, 4 months of glory, and we're gonna see what we can do. But yeah, so that's how the last few weeks have been. We're preparing now, yeah, for America's Mile, the Liberty Mile. I'm gonna call it the Liberty Mile because that's what it's been traditionally, and I have some a little bit of appreciation and nostalgia for that name. But yeah, so a pretty big race coming up. It is a proper A race. I haven't had an A race this summer, so it is nice to have one. The last thing I wanted to mention. So this series was started because I was going to be running, or not just running, swimming and biking as well, a triathlon in Geneva, Switzerland on July 6th. That race happened last week. So also just to think that this series would have concluded at that point when that race occurred. Um, this series has now transcended that race. It's now become something else. It's now just become a general following of my fitness journey. At some point, I do want to go back, and I think next year I'm gonna try and do that race. I do know that I'm in conditions that if I wanted to do the race, I probably could have because my swimming has gotten better. I guess I did mention I swam in the lake. I figured out that taping it to my middle finger, I was able to swim without many problems. It's taken a sec just to get back that swimming fitness that, make sure my breathing feels comfortable and everything like that. And my technique is definitely not all the way efficient because, my hand entry in the water is definitely not very clean when I'm going like I'm hitting it like this because your hand in theory the ideal is that you hit the water like this with your hand fully straight and it kind of penetrates. So inefficiencies in the stroke have not helped. In my stroke have not helped. But yeah, at some point I would like to get back to that triathlon. So that's kind of an eventual goal in the distance is do that Olympic triathlon next summer, and then we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, I got plenty of time to focus on other fitness goals. Right now, it's go for this mile, and then hopefully, if I get the 6 minute mile, which having hit that before the 24-minute 5K is definitely a surprise if it does happen. But if it does happen, great. And then focus on the 5K for the rest of the summer. I also have plenty of fun races planned. Y'all will find out about all of that in the coming weeks. But I'm running out of time on the recorder here because we're limited to 45 minutes. I'm at 44 and I'm at 44:30, 44:35 now. So anyway, I'm going to stop it here, but thanks y'all for watching. If you all have enjoyed the video, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will be back next week probably, and on the road. And I'm going to try to start making the videos on Monday now because I think that's better for consistency, better than Tuesday, and just better to organize things. But anyway, that's all. See y'all later. Bye. Love y'all.